things that I enjoyed were used against me because I used to enjoy speaking to her at various times, and she would not call. Yes, she just wouldn't message. It was just very, very controlling, and I was push me, pull you, push me, pull you.
Yeah.
And it was working with you that made me realise that I'm just attracting people. I'm being attracted to people who remind me of my childhood, because it's normal. It was normal feeling for me. There's only so many self-help TikToks you can watch and Instagram things before you realise you're getting somewhere, but you're not getting the whole way. And you pushed me to the finish line of where I needed to be.
Okay, so Carol, thank you so much for your time in coming on to talk to the Braver Women community and joining me on this podcast today. So we have been on quite a journey together over the past 3 months, haven't we? When I met you, we were dealing with agoraphobia, a toxic relationship, child trauma, anxiety, low confidence, panic when driving, in between jobs, and trying to get back into writing. So there's a lot there. So thank you so much for joining us and for coming on and being willing to talk about your braver success story.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Carol, tell us a bit about, because I know you very well. We've worked together very closely for the past 3 months, but everyone listening to this, they're not going to know who you are or where you're from or anything about yourself. So tell us a bit about who you are.
I'm Carol. I'm 54. I'm a lesbian. I have 3 grown-up children, all of who have left home. I'm a writer. I'm also an administrator. And I'm passionate about painting and writing and poetry and lots of creative outlets in my life.
Fantastic. Amazing. So what is it that you enjoy the most? Tell us an interesting fact about you.
An interesting fact about me. I used to be a sheep farmer. That is my interesting.
Wow.
Everyone is always taken aback when I tell them that.
Did you really?
Yeah, I was a sheep farmer for about 7 years. Absolutely adored it. And that is my aspiration, is to live that dream again.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Where were you a sheep farmer?
In Flaxton, on the outskirts of York. We had a small holding, me and my ex-husband. That's the coming out story in a bit. So lived out there. I was a sheep farmer 7 years, had an import-export business with sheep fleece.
My goodness.
So it was I loved that life.
The welly boot lifestyle.
Yeah.
See, I didn't even know that, so I've learned something now as well.
Something new, yeah.
So, Carol, just to start with, I always like to take my guests back on this journey so people listening can connect the dots and put 2 and 2 together, so they don't feel so alone. So, what was life like for you as a child? What was growing up like for you?
Very isolated. I was an only child, and I was definitely brought up in that sort of generation of children should be seen and not heard sort of thing. Lots of time on my own in my room. My mother wasn't liked by a lot of children in the area, so they weren't invited around to play and things. I sometimes went out to play when I was allowed, but it wasn't that often, and it was often, I was criticised all sorts of my childhood, by my mum. Very sort of dysfunctional. My dad was lovely.
Yeah,
he had 2 jobs. He worked shifts, and he was, sort of ships that pass in the night sort of situation, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this dysfunctional relationship with your mum, what was that like?
It was horrible. It's affected me the whole of my life. She was very pushy, pull you, love you 1 minute, dislike you the next. Yeah. I felt like I could never ever do anything right. A lot of criticism.
And that's a lot to take on for young shoulders, isn't it? That ambiguous push-pull dynamic, and we're going to come on to that in a bit, and as to how that affected your connection and your relationships. But so it's fair to say that during your childhood, you're quite a lonely kid.
Very lonely, yeah.
Yeah. And so as you moved through your childhood, did you have any inkling about your sexuality?
I realized I was different to my friends, but I didn't know how. And, when they were also doing oh, look at him, he's gorgeous. And, oh, I really fancy him. And, oh, I want him as my boyfriend. Didn't quite get it, what was going on. But I did want to hang around with my female friends. Didn't want to hang around with boys. And so I just thought, oh, maybe I am. At one point, I think in my early teens, I thought maybe I'm not mature. That's why I don't like boys as much as everybody else.
Yeah.
And, I eventually had a first boyfriend and all that sort of things. And I thought, yes, but it's all right,
Yeah.
But yeah.
It didn't light you up.
Yeah, it didn't light me up. No.
Yeah. So when or how did you realize that you were gay?
When I was about 18, I completely realized that I was in love with my best friend. I was married with a small child, and the feelings I had for her were completely different to the feelings that I had for my husband. And I was so confused. And at that point, there was a Lesbian telephone line on a Thursday.
Yeah.
And I used to go there on a Thursday night to the phone box if we didn't have a phone at home. And I used to ring it for however long and speak to somebody and go to occasional meetings and some discos.
And what would you talk about? Was it just for connection with other gay women?
Yeah, there was a lot of women in my situation who used to go to these meetings at the Women's Centre, and they were so brave. Some of them were in what I guess would be my age now, and they were coming out and leaving marriages and things, and they were so brave. I used to go to like the discos every fortnight, and I fell madly in love with someone, and it was horrible.
So this was your how long had you been married before you fell in love with your best friend?
About a year.
Yeah.
About a year. I sort of realised that, she was completely heterosexual and everything. So I knew there was never, ever going to be anything there.
Yeah.
I never actually told her, which is why I started going to the discos to meet other women that were in a similar situation to myself.
And what was that like when you found that connection?
I felt empowered when I was there.
Yeah.
The first one was hilarious because I went wearing a flowered skirt and top, and I'd done my hair and wearing makeup, and I walked into a sea of denim and khaki. I don't know reason. I was like, oh no, what have I done? What have I done? Yeah, it was hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so did you feel, Carol, that when you went into that disco environment with other LGBT women that you found your tribe, did you just feel a lot more at home?
I felt so at home.
Yeah.
More comfortable than I'd had in a long time, and I was having anxiety everywhere else but in that room.
Really?
Yeah. And I found an old diary that I was reading, and I was going through how I felt, and it was just really, really difficult reading it again.
I imagine. Yeah. What stood out for you the most?
What stood out for me the most was my misremembering an attraction that I had.
Yeah.
And it was sort of thinking, well, I was reading it completely and utterly wrong at the time, absolutely wrong. But hey, it's experience and stuff. And I had to stop going to the discos because I told my husband at the time that I was gay, and he said that if I left him, he would take my son away. And in 1990, he could have done. I went to the solicitors and they said, yes, you can take your kid.
Goodness me. Because
I couldn't risk it. So I just stopped going to the discos. I stopped going to the women's meetings, cut everybody out, and just locked myself away again because I just didn't dare.
Oh, I'm not surprised. The threat of losing your son, that must have been horrific. So I was going to come on to that. So how long had you kept this under your hat before you sat your husband down and said, I'm gay? Well, what was that like for you?
Well, we got together when I was 16, so it was 3 years, about 3 years before I told him.
Yeah.
And it didn't go down well.
What happened?
He just threatened to. He'd photocopied my diary.
Oh God.
I went to make his pack up and went into his bag and got his pack of box, and I saw this paper and I just pulled it like that and I saw my handwriting. And he'd photocopied my diary where I'd written that I'd been to the women's meetings and what have you. I did lie to him. I told him I was going to my friend's house. So I had lied to him about where I'd been. But I was never unfaithful. I never, got together with anybody or anything like that. And because if I'd have kissed a woman at that point, I would never, ever have kissed another man in my life.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done.
So taking that space outside of your marriage to find and discover a bit more about yourself, a voice in that was needing to be answered, and then having to go back to that life and realizing that it was definitely not what you signed up for. And I can imagine that would have been very confusing. And I hear a lot of women in the Braver Women group at the moment, and they talk about that confusion and that guilt and that fear. How did you overcome all of that, Carol? How did you deal with that at the time?
I just locked it all away. I just compartmentalized things and I locked it away. But then that's when the anxiety got really, really, really bad.
Yeah.
And to a point where I was agoraphobic.
Yeah. I'm going to come on to that in a moment. So how did you eventually leave with your son? And
he left me. After 2 years later, he decided he wanted his freedom back.
Right.
And that was absolutely fine by me. But the lingering threat.
Yeah.
If I stepped out of line, was still there. So I never explored. I didn't go back to and I could have done. I could have gone back. There was still people there, but I just didn't dare go back.
My God, Carol, that's suppression for 3 years of just complete suppression and just having to fulfill your duties as a wife.
Yeah.
Goodness me, what a brave woman. So you've had this really troubled childhood, a lot of loneliness, a lot of criticism, a lot of isolation, and then into a marriage where you realised that you were gay, and then having to suppress that for a number of years with your little boy. I mean, that's enough in itself really to last a lifetime, but what happens thereafter?
It was a series of regrettable relationships with men, always trying to do what I thought was the right thing. And my mum was, very much, you've got to be married, got to, that married child, husband, food on table type person.
Yeah.
And I just kept trying, thinking I've got to keep trying. This is obviously I'm not trying hard enough. And of course, when you have vulnerabilities, there are people out there who will prey on those vulnerabilities. And I found one particular one that was just revolting. And so, that was my life. That was my life for a bit. And then had my daughter when I was 36. I had my other son when I was 26.
Yeah.
And I just lived life until my mid-40s.
Yeah.
Just getting by, married, divorced, and then remarried.
Yeah.
I thought, right, we were sort of settling for companionship and everything, and we had the farm, and it was like fine.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm hiding this really well. I'm doing this really well. I've got everything I've ever dreamed of. I've got my farm. I've got my horses in my field. I've got my stables and the livery business. Everything is really lovely. Why aren't I fucking happy?
Yeah.
Why aren't I fucking happy? And then sorry.
Did you love him, Carol?
Not in that way, not in that husband-wife way. I loved him as a friend. Tom is a lovely, lovely man. But it was not a marriage.
Yeah.
And so when we sold the farm and we moved to a country cottage, and I thought, okay, roses round the door, stone cottage, dream,
yeah,
beautiful. And I went to find a gardener, and this woman walked around the corner, and I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. Because my heart just went like this. Yeah. And my head was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was it. I was just thought, oh, Jesus Christ, I can't do this anymore. I cannot keep lying to myself.
Yeah.
And lying to everybody else.
Yeah.
And so after a few weeks, I had a very difficult conversation with Tom and told him that we had to split up and that I was gay.
Yeah. Again, unbelievably brave.
He was devastated, absolutely devastated.
Yeah. Yeah. And how old were the kids roughly at this time?
Eleanor was 12, Rowan was, about 20, 21. He was at university.
Yeah.
And Damien had left home and he was sort of late 20s.
Yeah. And what were the kids? How did they react to this?
Eleanor thought it was amazing. She thought it was the best thing ever. Damien had to be drunk for 2 weeks after.
Right.
Because I invited him round to say, we need to have a chat.
Yeah.
I was either dying or I was pregnant.
Right.
So when I told him I was gay, I think it came a bit of a shock to him.
Okay.
So he went off and got drunk for a fortnight, and he still can't listen to Katy Perry.
Oh, really? Okay. What is it about Katy Perry?
I Kissed a Girl and I Liked It song.
Oh, God, okay.
Everyone kept singing it to him, so he was like, oh, God, don't do this to me. So, yeah. But Rowan was who I'm very close to, the closest. He's really struggled with it because of the breakdown of the family and everything like that. So he did a film about me.
Okay.
Kind of coming out story, and for his university project.
Yeah.
It was in Manchester Pride one year.
Oh wow! Okay. So it just takes a little. Yeah, I'm not surprised. It sounds because and you may have seen them. There's a lot of women in the group who ask questions about how do I help my kids through this. What advice would you give them, Carol?
Just being as open and honest with them as you can, depending on their age group. But mine was sort of teenagers and above. But just be open and honest with them. And if they have any questions, if I can't answer them, I went online looking for them, and or amongst other communities on the internet, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I came into this completely new because I don't actually know anybody who's a lesbian when I came out. So I was like, what do I do? Where do I? Because the Yorks didn't have a community then. It didn't have a lesbian line or a disco or anything like that by then.
Yeah.
So I was like, where are all the lesbians?
And I'm
still asking that question now.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? I lived in North Yorkshire. It must be about 20 years ago now, as you know. And even when I first moved to York, I remember looking for a gay bar. Nowhere to be found.
No.
So it's not much has changed there at all. No, really.
People try to open bars and cafes and things, but there's a cafe at the moment that's straight but aimed at young people very much, and I just don't feel comfortable.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Quite isolating, isn't it? So there's still a massive need for connection, isn't there? Yeah. So you've been taking me on quite a journey, Carol, so far. And it sounds like you've had to deal with and overcome a hell of a lot of things. Such an early portion of your life, and that part of your life where often we're not as experienced to be able to deal with things, and it can leave you feeling broken. So when was it that you started to become affected with anxiety and low self-esteem? What do you recognize now?
I've always had low self-esteem for as long as I can remember, especially during my teenage years.
Yeah.
But the anxiety started sort of 19 years old and onwards. Agoraphobic completely by the age of 22.
So how did that take shape in your life when you say agoraphobic completely?
I rarely left the house. I had Damien, who was 3 years old at that point, and getting to the shops every week just to shop was a major struggle. My mum didn't help. her way of helping, suggesting that she adopt Damien and go live with her.
Right.
Which wasn't the help I needed, really. And it was a real struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, what was it, looking back now, that you were frightened of?
Everything outside. I was worried about lots of what ifs. What if I'm delayed in the supermarket? What if there's a queue at the checkout? What if I don't have the money to pay for my food?
Yeah,
because I was a single parent on benefits at that point. Budgeting. You go to the supermarket and you think he's pointing at this, that, and the other, and he wants, and I know I can't get. Yeah. It was just that, and that built the anxiety too, because I felt like I wasn't doing enough for him. And so it was just a struggle, and I was reading through the diary yesterday. The one thing that kept me going was reading.
Reading. You're reading and writing.
I joined a group which was for writing scripts for a soap opera on television, and I had 3 of my scripts used on Yorkshire television at late 80s, and I joined a script writing group in the early 90s, and that kept me going for a bit.
So all of that creativity,
yeah. And I did that for a while, but then when that all finished, I started writing for myself on and off.
Yeah, that's just amazing. I mean, it sounds to me that outlet has always been locked up inside of you. Just that yearning to express yourself.
Yeah. Totally.
So agoraphobia, because I'm trying to give everyone just an idea of what life was like before you came to see me. So tell us what you were struggling with the most. What was it that you
were having? I didn't have a social life. It was very much me, my 2 dogs, and home. And when I started with you, going out anywhere was really difficult. Driving was exceptionally difficult. I could go to the shops. I'd drive like 2 miles a week, sort of thing, in my car, very wasted car. And I would, I'd have to pluck up the courage to go. Some days I didn't go out at all. Sometimes I didn't even open my curtains because I couldn't face looking at the outside world. When I started with you, and then just slowly over the weeks, it's like a light bulb came on, and I started driving, and I was having driving lessons. I can drive, but I was on the motorway with driving lessons, and just getting out and about more and more, and pushing myself, and realizing the what ifs. What if this happens? Well, if it happens, it happens. If I'm delayed, I'm delayed. So just allowed me to go further and further.
Yeah, I mean, it's been amazing, and we'll come on to that in a moment. But there was a long list, wasn't there? Almost like a shopping list of things that you needed help with when you came to see me. I had the agoraphobia, the perceived agoraphobia, the toxic relationship, and that dynamic that was in your life at the time, and obviously some of the trauma, which we're not going to talk about in any detail. But obviously the low confidence, not believing in yourself, panic when you were driving, and then just a complete abandonment of your own values. So if you think back to that place, it's about 3 months ago now, Carol. What was it that you were doing?
I was settling.
Say more about that.
I was in a relationship where everything was very one-sided, and I felt like I couldn't ask for anything. And if I did ask, every single time I was greeted with anger, and phones being slammed down, and made to feel like I wasn't worth my time wasn't important.
Yeah,
I wasn't being chosen in any stretch of the imagination in any way. Things that I enjoyed were used against me, because I used to enjoy speaking to her at various times, and she would not call.
Yeah,
she just wouldn't message. It was just very, very controlling, and I was push me, pull you.
Yeah,
and it was working with you that made me realize that I'm just attracting people. I'm being attracted to people who remind me of my childhood, because it's normal. It was normal feeling for me to feel like that. Yes, it was anxiety driven, but that's what I was used to.
Yeah.
So having a calm life I wasn't looking for that. I was looking for something to give me like that all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that we touched on, wasn't it? That high arousal and that strong emotions was being confused with being in love, when actually it was being triggered by these types of relationships, being confused for a feeling of love, because that's what felt normal to you. That was your template from what you learned growing up about yourself. And if no one ever teaches us to esteem ourselves, then how do we learn to do that? It's a tough lesson to do as an adult, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so you had a massive breakthrough very early on with regards to this, didn't you? With this quite toxic relationship. Are you happy to talk about it?
Yes, I am, yeah.
What happened inside of you, Carol, after the first or second? I think was it the first or second session? And I remember speaking to you, and you said to me, I've ended it. What led you to that?
I got to the point where I felt utterly broken. Every time I felt like I was about to get a piece of life that I'd wanted so much, it was being snatched away. At every single moment, it was like, Mum, we're going to do this, and then it's snatched away. Oh, we'll do this. It's snatched away. Empty promises. And I was beginning to feel so ill. I couldn't sleep. Wasn't eating properly. No self-care going on whatsoever.
Yeah.
My head was just completely consumed. And I realized all of the things that I aimed to do this year, I wasn't doing any of it. I hadn't done a jot of it since I'd met her, because it was just all consuming, because she kept it going, pushy pulley.
Yeah.
And I allowed that to go on far too long. And I'm working with you, and I realized I cannot do this anymore. Damaging my health. Long term, it would probably have killed me. But I'm not, I decided, right, that's it. It's over.
Yeah.
It is over.
Yeah. And that was such a brave move. Such a brave move for someone with an anxious attachment style to actually pull the plug on a relationship. And I know that was very hard for you. Very, very hard indeed. But having come through that timeline now and looking back, what are some of the key things that you've learned, Carol? Some of the key things that you might be able to help other women listening to this explore within themselves that led you to this, to start to value yourself more?
With working with you, is learning self-belief, believing that you are enough, and knowing I am enough.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of just working through every single aspect of what you're teaching every week and guiding. It is just invaluable. And I will continue to listen to everything that we've done, because there are days when I'm having, what did she say about that? What did Leanne say about that? And I'll go back and have another listen, and then that, yeah. It's just it's repetitively speaking to yourself about the, what ifs and dealing with the maybes and all that. And it's just got to work through it. Keep going, doing the work.
Yeah, the work. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people are under the illusion that therapy and coaching is just a quick fix, one session and you're done. But I know you've had therapy before. What's been your experience in the past, Carol?
It's been like a little Band-Aid, really. But then it heals off, doesn't it? And then the wound is still underneath there.
Yeah.
And sometimes wounds can't be completely healed, but you find a way to cope with them better and heal them in a different way. And you've helped me to do that. And therapy was great to speak to somebody, but you don't get anything back. You were giving me stuff back. I needed someone to challenge me. Why did you do that? Whatever, And it's like, if you don't challenge me, I'm just going to carry on doing the same thing. And that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
So helpful in one respect, but in others, not.
So when you say challenge, what was it that you were doing that kept you in this stuck place? What were the light bulb moments for you that allowed you to take a different perspective, that allowed you to release some of these really limiting ideas about who you were and what you deserved?
I think one of the first few weeks when we were working through the guidance through the what ifs and the maybes, which around my driving, was when I sort of really properly sat down and thought about, so what if you are driving and you get stuck in a traffic jam? And then I will deal with it. And the CRT visualizing what I was doing and explaining what I was doing was just, that was like, oh my word. Oh wow, okay. And then you go out and you test the system, you're testing the system, going to the supermarket for the first time in about 10 years. I worked out, it was 10 years since I went to the supermarket on a Saturday. There I was in the supermarket thinking, there's a big queue. There's a queue. That would have had me flying out of that door, food strewn across the aisles. I wouldn't have stayed.
Yeah.
Have stayed.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, I can do this. I can do this.
Yeah. And do you remember one time when you spoke to me, said, Leanne, it was the Saturday, the busiest day in York ever. And I went for a drive. I had to go and do some jobs or whatever it was that you needed to do. And it wasn't until you got home that you'd realised that you'd driven on the busiest day that you've ever driven in your whole life.
This road. Yeah. And I didn't even think about it. It was second nature, just going and doing it. Whereas before, it would have taken 2 hours of building up to getting my car keys, to get in the car, to go round the corner to the shop.
Yeah.
This was me on the A64, zooming down at tell you what speed. And then, I was there in the midst of all this traffic, beetling along traffic by the side we were moving. But it was like traffic lights, red lights in front of me, of cars or traffic lights, would have had me in major panic.
Yeah.
To run.
So it's interesting, isn't it, when you start becoming aware of what you're thinking and the emotions that are unprocessed or have been squashed down or minimized, that changes how you feel, doesn't it? And even the mental imagery that we use and this biofeedback that we have in terms of how we talk to ourselves, how we perceive ourselves, how we perceive danger, how we perceive our capabilities affects how we feel. And then invariably all behavior is emotionally driven. So what was it that what was going on inside of you before you came to see me? What was going on? How were you treating yourself? How were you talking to yourself? How was all of that making you feel?
Oh, I spoke to myself really badly all the time. You're a waste of space. What are you doing that for? Everyone else can go out and do it. Look at them going off in their car with the family, going out for the day. Why can't you do that? We'll do that. What's wrong with you? He was just always talking so badly about myself. But not anymore, because I've got this lovely voice in my head going, you can do this. You can do this.
And what's that like? How quickly did you notice that started to change, that inner critic? How quickly did you start to feel differently about yourself?
It took a few weeks to feel differently, and it's slow. It was a slow thing. So, the voices have been quite loud for a long time.
Yeah.
But it was just repeatedly going out and doing it, and then coming home thinking, actually, I didn't think about that traffic jam that was just sat in, or I just didn't think about the supermarket, and I didn't think about, you've driven all that way and you didn't think about it. And you just decided to go for a drive one night and you went for a drive. That was unheard of. Was unheard of.
Yeah, and the person who came to see me said they had agoraphobia suddenly off out on goth nights and socializing. Tell us about that. The goth nights in York are just legendary. They're amazing, and I've hidden this part of me for a long time too, and that sort of she emerged in January and decided that she wasn't going to hide anymore. And I started looking for goth things to go to. Went to a couple with a friend, and then one night nobody was going,
And I just thought, you know what? I am bloody going on my own. I got ready and I went and I sat on my own for a bit. And then 3 lovely women came over and said, do you want to come and sit with us? Which I did. I made some lovely friends and we danced and laughed. And I got home about 1:45 in the morning. And I'd gone out at 8.
Yeah.
Anytime that in agoraphobia land, if I went out, it was for an hour tops.
Yeah.
Go meet my friend for breakfast for an hour tops.
Mm-hmm.
You know, got to be back, got to get back. This was like, I didn't want to come home. If I hadn't had the 2 dogs at home, I would have stayed out later.
Yeah.
You know, it was just I felt so free that night. And then I realised I could, so I've been to gigs on my own.
Yeah.
Gigs with friends. You know, I feel free.
Mm-hmm.
I feel absolutely free.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel about yourself and your sexuality now?
I feel even more confident about it.
Mm-hmm.
More confident because I think I am more myself than I've ever been, and I'm continuing to grow into the person that I'm meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
Not just as being a lesbian, but as being a working woman, and the ideas and aspirations that I have.
Yeah, tell us about them. These ideas and aspirations that they've been dormant for a long time, but now that you're free, Carol, now that you're living bravely, what are you doing? What have you got planned?
Well, I have written a book.
Tell us, have you got a copy of it?
Not the hand, sorry, not the hand, but
that's all right.
I written a lesbian romance, a historical romance, and it comes out on the 24th of October.
That is amazing.
I know. I started writing it a year and a half ago, and I aim to finish it by New Year's Eve, which I did. And then I've been editing and formatting ever since, but I had big gaps in it because I couldn't focus because I had this relationship that it was just blocking me constantly. Yes, it is now almost ready.
What's the book called?
Charlotte and Me.
Charlotte and Me. And where can people get hold of the book?
It'll be available on Amazon. I'm self-publishing because I decided that after 4 years of academia doing my degrees, I was absolutely sick to the back teeth of people judging my writing.
Yeah.
You know, you're not academic enough. You're not doing this. I'm sorry, you can judge me as much as you like, but I don't care. This is my book, written how I wanted to write it. And I'm sure the people who have read it have loved it.
Yeah.
So I've got complaints of why did you write this? I couldn't get to sleep. I had to keep reading and things.
Wow, complaints. They sound like compliments to me. So are you able to give us a sneak preview as to just the overview of what it's about or not?
It's about a lady called Alice, and she is my age, roughly in 50s, and she has just been divorced from her wife, and she's having to start again in York, buys a house in York, and it's all the adventures and new love and romance around her new life.
Wow, it sounds very exciting, very exciting. So staying on that topic of moving away from a romance and towards a new life, what reflections do you have now for valuing yourself more in a relationship, but also recognizing your worth?
Realizing what I will not settle for anymore.
And what's that? What won't you settle for?
Somebody who doesn't choose me. Mm-hmm. Clearly doesn't choose me. Mm-hmm. Who is the first sign of me feeling like there's a pushy-pulley thing going on. I will be out of there. Mm-hmm. I will not settle for anything other than somebody who I deserve and they deserve me. Mm. Because I've settled for too long.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely.
And they have to deserve me.
Yes, very much so. And that's the thing.
And I hate saying that because it sounds really big-headed, because I'm not big-headed. But I know what I need, and it isn't any of the other people I've ever been attracted to in my life. It's somebody who shows me that they want to be with me, and I don't have to continuously prove to them that I want them more, which is what I've been doing.
Yeah, and that's it. And learn from childhood. And it's something that I did as well. Carol, I know we talked in depth about it. And there's nothing wrong with having an anxious attachment style, by the way. But it's recognizing that the problems that it brings when we're constantly looking to feel safe by getting our sense of self-worth or what we need to feel safe to survive from outside of us, and never being able to emotionally regulate, to lean into what it is that you really know, and how you can self-soothe, and how you can actually fulfill your own needs before giving those to other people. Because when you give your needs to other people, you give them the job to make you happy or sad, depending on what comes back. What was that like for you when we went through that and you were able to understand what patterns had been playing out in your life?
I just realised I was giving my power away all the time. Yeah. Just always doing. That's all I was ever doing, was doing that. Letting them lead the way and allowing them to drive the relationship forward, or pull it away from me whenever they felt like it.
Yeah.
And use whatever I'd said, you reveal some of your vulnerabilities to somebody in your relationship, and then they start using it against you. Mm-hmm. You think, why would that person do that to you when they've said, don't tell people my feelings because it allows them to do some, use it against me. Mm-hmm. And then they go and do the same thing to you. Mm-hmm. But at that point, when they said that, I thought, oh my word, I can trust this person because they understand. Yeah, they didn't. They were just on their focused journey. They weren't thinking about mine. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And now it's just, I want the absolute opposite of that.
Yeah, and not vacate yourself when you get into a relationship and almost dance to the beat of their drum and completely abandon yourself in the process. Yeah. So what advice would you give to anybody around developing their own internal shock absorbers, their own emotional self-care, now that you've been through this process, Carol?
I would say do your course. I would seriously say, if you want you were in a similar position to myself or anything like that, do your course.
Oh, that's very kind.
There's only so many self-help TikToks you can watch and Instagram things before you realize you're getting somewhere, but you're not getting the whole way. Mm. And you push me to the finish line of where I needed to be.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to a job interview tomorrow, and I would never, ever, ever put myself forward for it before doing this.
I'm so proud of you, Carol. I really, really am. So thank you for your kind words there. Thanks for the recommendation. What is it that you found about the Braver Women? What were the main standout points that you found really powerful on the Braver Women, the one-to-one private program with me?
The 5 patterns that we do every day. Mm-hmm. They were so helpful. When you first said that I had homework, I was like, oh God, what? What? I've got homework? What do you mean I've got homework? So how am I going to, I've got nothing to say. How am I going to have something to say after just one day? Mm-hmm. And as you know, you've got essays from you, and then you got voice things that are like 12 hours long. So yeah, they were absolutely brilliant as long as you did them. And at the beginning, I didn't. I was bad, wasn't I? Mm. And I was like, okay, I can do it tomorrow. And then you were like, no, this is part of it. This is part of it. And so that's what I did. Yeah. And then once I got into it, it was so helpful, and knowing you had to focus every single day. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because what we're looking to do is build those new neural pathways, and it comes by repetition, in the same way that we do something really unhelpful for 20 or 30 or 40 years, and that completely just starts to frame our perspective. When it's pointed out to you, there's a different way, and you can start doing that. It almost feels as if you've got to start writing with your opposite hand. But if you even did that for 6 weeks, it would then start to feel natural. And that's essentially what's happened. So you found the accountability and that daily contact really helpful.
Really, really helpful.
Yeah. And what about the structure and the content? of what we were going through with the coaching and the therapy. What did you find really useful about that?
But we recorded it every week, and then I could go back to it. And that was so difficult. That was so hard at the beginning, as I said to you.
Yeah.
To actually sit there and watch myself, because I don't have a mirror in the house. I couldn't even look at myself, never mind watch myself. And we suggested we put the laptop in the other side of the room and all that sort of thing, or whatever. And after what I think was it about like half a week, I was watching it with the laptop in front of me.
Yeah.
Because this is me. This is who I am. And
that's it.
And I think I was believing about myself, but not true at all.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts, Carol? I always say to clients and women who come to me for help that thoughts alone don't necessarily change feelings. And if we're going to start changing limiting beliefs, we need to change how we feel about something. And the only way that we change how we feel is by feelings change feelings. And the only way we change our feelings is by taking a different course of action to establish the difference, to get that different perspective, to realize that it wasn't so scary after all. On hearing this now, what are your thoughts? Do you agree, or do you think just thoughts alone?
Absolutely agree. I didn't think so at the beginning. I did wonder whether it would work for me, having paid for thousands of hours of therapy before. But I think I was at that point in my life where I had to do something.
Yeah.
Because of how I was feeling. I really had to do something, and it has so worked out brilliantly. It has. It's a continuous journey.
Yeah.
But, I am so far down that road than I ever thought I would be.
And how supported did you feel throughout the process? Because I know typical therapy and coaching is it's once a week session, see you later, see you next week, or see you in 2 weeks. What helped you to feel like you were able to trust the process and lean into it and get the most out of it?
Because I knew that you were there. I would do my feedback every day and you would give me a response. And I knew that if I needed to speak to you, you were available, because you kept saying to me, I'm always available and stuff. I think I only used that a couple of times, didn't I, in the first sessions when I was in a really difficult way. And the community online as well, the Facebook community. I didn't use it as much as I should have done, and I will continue to use it now, but that was more time restriction than anything.
Yeah, but just having that peer support and having women around you who are in the same boat, who are going on the same journey as you with me, it's really nice just to have that support and that togetherness. Yeah. So when you think about yourself now and where you've been and hiding and all of the anxiety and the problems that resulted from the hiding and the suppression, how important do you think, Carol, it is to be authentic as a gay woman?
I think it's important not just for yourself, it's very important, but it's also important to be seen by other gay women. Put yourself out there to encourage others. One of my things about writing my book was about a later in life lesbian coming out and the journey that she was on.
Yeah.
Hopefully maybe it could help somebody else. I will throw lots of maybes and probablys just in for you, because I know how much you love those words. And I'm going to continuously message you them occasionally. And I think that journey of being out and proud about it, and I know a lot of people can't do that, whatever circumstance, but doing this, actually making that journey, making that step, and continuously doing that has just been so empowering, so empowering. And I don't feel like pride fits me, because it's all full of very young people and tons and tons of energy.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to find my own little tribe of older women who I have similar things in common with, and I'm loving that process.
Oh, it's so great to see you like this, Carol, smiling, confident, happy. So what does mental freedom look and feel like to you now? Now you're over on the other side.
like I had a world and a life ahead of me. Because at one point I didn't feel like I had a life ahead of me.
Yeah.
And I have dreams now that I know that I can do.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm going to get a passport because I'm going to go on holiday abroad.
Tell us more about your dreams.
I want to go, well, my first one, I want to go to Dublin. That's my first thing, because I haven't been on a plane since 1982, so I need to get on a plane.
Yeah.
But if I go on an hour's journey,
mm-hmm.
I'll be CRTing it to the airport and go to Dublin for the weekend or something. And then I really want to go to Prague.
Wow.
I really want to go there. I want to go to Iceland.
Yeah.
And I want to hire a camper van and drive down to Wiltshire. And I want to go and see Stonehenge. And as an archaeologist, I need to go to these places that I keep writing about. So I have to go to Stonehenge.
Goodness me, there's going to be absolutely no stopping you now, is there?
Never be at home. So.
We'll have to book an appointment in to speak to you, won't we? And just for anyone listening,
and write more.
Say again, sorry.
And do more writing.
Yes, and you do that while you're away, can't you, on your travels? And I think anyone else listening to this, they're not going to know what CRT is, but we know it's a cognitive restructuring technique that I give to my clients. So just in case anyone was thinking, what's a CRT? Okay. That's all right. Don't you dare apologise. I totally know. I knew what you meant. So when you think about braver women, how is this different to anything else that you've experienced in terms of the group, the therapy, the vibe that you have that you've been a part of?
It's so different to normal therapy, in that you come away with and how do you feel about that? If I heard that one more time, I swear I would have screamed. You know, I know how I feel about it, but it's not changing anything. What can I do to change it? You know, was what I need. I needed tools. I needed a bit of guidance and somebody to go challenge. But I wasn't getting that. But you do the challenging. You do the challenging.
Yeah, and I certainly don't head tilt and sit there and go, how does that feel?
Don't.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. And I said to you from the very start, didn't I? All I want, Carol, is for you to give me 100%, and I'll give you 1,000%, because you're going to be getting your sleeves rolled up, but I'm going to be getting my sleeves rolled up even further to help you.
I hadn't really taken account of. Everybody says that. They all say that it's going to be hard work and it's a journey and all that. You really do. You really do put people through their paces. But the result is worth all of the hard work. It really is.
Well, I'd never ever asked any client to sit in front of me and do something that I wouldn't be prepared to do myself, or haven't done myself, or wouldn't stand alongside you as you're going through the process. And I'm really glad that you felt supported throughout. That's for me, that's pivotal. There's nothing worse than trying to change aspects or problems within your life, and you're being left to your own devices for seven days, 2 weeks, coming back and with nothing to work with. So what does the future hold for you? I know you say you're going to be going traveling, and you've got some more writing planned. You're going to be doing some more books. Is there anything that we've not covered that you're thinking, oh, I really, really want to do that, but I haven't said it? What is it? I know you're holding back.
I want a better job. I mean, I've been stuck in admin for far too long, and I'm aiming to get a managerial job now. Somewhere that I can actually use all of my skills. And not just be there filing papers. I'm worth more than that, and I know I can do more than that. I know I can.
Yeah, and the irony, wasn't it? So since you've worked with me, you've ended a toxic relationship. You've got a job interview tomorrow. No more agoraphobia or perceived I can't go outside. You're able to drive and go from A to B wherever the hell you like. You start to value yourself. You feel confident and happy in your own skin now. You've been out partying on the town solo. and you're just about to release a book. That is absolutely phenomenal, Carol. And I have said to you many times, I've really enjoyed working with you because, yes, it's been hard, but you have absolutely put your heart and soul into this entire process, and you're reaping the rewards. I'm so, so proud of you. I really am. And I just want to find out from you, and just we'll keep you for just a few minutes longer. Do you have any words of wisdom from your life experiences so far with members of the Braver Women community or any queer women listening to this? Do you have any advice or words to help them on their journey to self-acceptance and inner peace?
Always believe them in themselves, to know that you are the best person to give yourself the advice you need, and you can do anything that you set your mind to. You really can. It might seem that you can't. Everything seem miles and miles and miles away, but you can do it if you set your heart on it and your head to it. You really can.
Yeah, that's amazing. And if you set your heart on it and you can do anything, what helped you realize that you could do anything?
I think when I first got in the car and I did that big drive, and I realized if I can do this, I can do anything. Because a few months ago, I couldn't even put the key in the ignition. Mm-hmm. I could do anything I set my mind to. If I want to do it, I will do it.
Yeah. That's absolutely phenomenal. Incredible words, Carol. Thank you so, so much. And I always ask this, but are you going to stick around in the Braver Women community? Are you going to, because I'll be keeping tabs on your progress, particularly in the client support group as well. But thank you for an incredible success story, Carol. I'm so humbled and grateful that you come on and share your story to support other queer women around the globe. And Carol, you are a braver woman, and you always have been. So I just want to wish you best of luck. You're not going to need it for the rest of your life. I hope that you're going to be happy, living with more passion, purpose, and pride. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Leanne.
You're welcome.